Imagine being so mentally disturbed that you keep your dead husband's corpse in your bedroom for over a year. Or so delusional that you think you're made of glass. Or so addicted to, well, self-pleasure, that your doctor has to run your country while you're busy with yourself. These aren't fictional horror stories. They're the real lives of history's most powerful rulers. Today, we're counting down the 13 most bizarre habits of kings and queens throughout history. And trust me, number 1 will leave you absolutely speechless. Number 13. Qin Shi Huang, the mercury drinker. Let's start with China's first emperor, who was so desperate to live forever that he literally poisoned himself to death. Qin Shi Huang believed that mercury was the key to immortality. Every single day, he would drink concoctions containing liquid mercury, convinced it would make him live forever. But here's where it gets truly weird. He didn't just drink it. He had rivers of mercury installed in his tomb to represent China's real rivers. He became so paranoid from mercury poisoning that he never slept in the same room twice and had identical carriages built so assassins couldn't target him. The irony? The very substance he thought would grant him eternal life was slowly driving him insane and destroying his body from the inside out. He died at just 49, probably wondering why his immortality elixir wasn't working. Number 12. The Zhengde Emperor, the man with an imaginary friend in charge. Now, this is a strange one. The Zhengde Emperor of China had an imaginary general named General Zhu Shou, but here's the kicker. He didn't just talk to this imaginary friend. He issued actual military orders through him. Real armies received commands from a person who didn't exist. But wait, it gets weirder. He built a fake marketplace in his palace where he'd pretend to be different shopkeepers. One day, he'd be a butcher, the next a merchant. His ministers had to play along, pretending to buy things from their emperor-turned-shopkeeper. Oh, and his idea of fun? Taking his soldiers on raids to kidnap daughters from wealthy families. When you're the emperor and you're bored, apparently playing house isn't enough. Number 11. Friedrich Wilhelm I, the tall people hoarder. Picture this. You're the king of Prussia, you have unlimited power, and what do you decide to collect? Stamps? Art? No, you collect human beings, specifically really tall ones. Friedrich Wilhelm I was obsessed with creating a regiment of giants called the Potsdam Giants, the minimum height, 6 feet 2 inches, which was huge for the 1700s. He literally kidnapped tall people from other countries. If you were tall and walking through Prussia, you might just disappear. Here's the creepiest part. He forced tall men and women to breed together, trying to create a race of giant soldiers. Foreign diplomats would actually gift him tall people like they were exotic pets. Imagine being given to a foreign king as a birthday present just because you're 6 feet 5 inches. Number 10. Charles VI of France. The glass man. Imagine waking up one day and genuinely believing you're made of glass. That's what happened to Charles VI of France. This wasn't just a fleeting thought. He lived his entire life terrified he would shatter into a million pieces. He had iron rods sewn into his clothes to create a protective framework. He would scream if anyone tried to touch him. For 5 months straight, he refused to bathe or change clothes because he was afraid the movement might break him. But it gets worse. Sometimes he forgot who he was entirely. He'd run through the palace howling like a wolf, claiming to be St. George. He didn't recognize his own wife and children. His courtiers would find him cowering in corners, afraid that a slight breeze might cause him to shatter like a dropped wine glass. Number 9. Caligula, the horse whisperer. Roman Emperor Caligula loved his horse Incitatus more than most people love their children. He built it a marble stable with an ivory manger. The horse ate oats mixed with gold flakes. But here's where it gets insane. He made the horse a consul of Rome. This means a horse technically held one of the highest political offices in the Roman Empire. He would invite dignitaries to have dinner with his horse. The horse had its own servants. There were serious discussions in the Roman Senate that involved getting the opinion of a horse. But Caligula's madness went beyond equine politics. He built a 2-mile floating bridge just so he could ride his horse across it. Why? Because a soothsayer once said he had no more chance of becoming emperor than of riding a horse across the Gulf of Baiae. So naturally, He spent a fortune proving the soothsayer wrong. Number 8. Ivan the Terrible, the mercury addict. If you thought drinking mercury was bad, meet Ivan the Terrible. He kept a large cauldron of mercury bubbling in his bedroom and would drink from it regularly. When they examined his body centuries later, they found 300 times the lethal dose of mercury in his system. But mercury was just the beginning of his bizarre habits. He created Russia's first secret police, who wore dog heads on their saddles and carried brooms, symbolizing sniffing out and sweeping away enemies. He would personally participate in torture sessions, getting his hands bloody. The most horrifying moment? In a fit of rage, he beat his pregnant daughter-in-law so badly she miscarried. When his son protested, Ivan struck him in the head with his iron-pointed staff, killing him instantly. He spent the rest of his life making lists of all his victims so he could pray for their souls. Number 7. Henry VIII, the walking plague. We all know Henry VIII was a large man, but did you know that in his later years, he smelled so bad that people could detect him from 3 rooms away? After a jousting accident, he developed leg ulcers that never healed. These wounds constantly oozed pus and blood, creating a stench so overwhelming that courtiers would stuff their noses with herbs. He became so massive, nearly 400 pounds, that he needed a special hoist to mount his horse. He would eat entire swans in one sitting. The combination of rotting flesh, obesity, and Tudor-era hygiene created a walking biological hazard. The smell was so notorious that when actor Jude Law played Henry VIII in a recent film, he had a special perfume made containing notes of pus, blood, and fecal matter to get into character. The film crew reportedly gagged between takes. Number 6. Ludwig II of Bavaria, the reverse vampire. King Ludwig II didn't drink blood, but he did flip his entire life schedule upside down. He slept all day and lived at night. He would take elaborate sleigh rides through the Bavarian countryside at 2 a.m., even in summer, using artificial snow. His dinner parties were something else entirely. He would set places for imaginary guests and have full conversations with empty chairs. Servants had to serve invisible people, refilling glasses that no one drank from and clearing plates no one ate from. He spent so much money building fairy tale castles that he bankrupted Bavaria. When officials came to declare him insane, he reportedly said, "I wish to remain an eternal enigma to myself and to others." 3 days later, he drowned himself and his psychiatrist in a lake. Talk about staying mysterious. Number 5. Queen Juana of Castile, the corpse cuddler. Love can make you do crazy things, but Queen Juana took it to a whole new level. When her husband Philip the Handsome died in 1506, she refused to bury him. Not for a few days, not for a few weeks, for over a year. She would have the coffin opened so she could kiss and caress the rotting corpse. She insisted Philip was just sleeping and would wake up soon. Armed guards stood watch to ensure no other women could get near her decomposing husband. When she traveled, the corpse came too, like the world's worst travel companion. Even after being forced to inter the body, she spent years claiming Philip would return. Imagine being a servant trying to explain to visitors why the queen is having dinner conversations with an empty chair, waiting for her dead husband to join her. Number 4. George III, the tree talker. King George III madness is well documented, but the specific manifestations were absolutely surreal. He would hold full conversations with oak trees, believing they were visiting dignitaries. Courtiers watched in horror as their king shook branches, thinking he was shaking hands with the King of Prussia. He once spent hours trying to bury a stake in the palace gardens, convinced it would grow into a beef tree. During one episode, he believed London was flooding and tried to sail his bed to safety. He would issue orders to people who had been dead for years. On Christmas Day, he introduced his pillow to the court as Prince Octavius, celebrating its birth. His urine turned bright blue from all the medicines, and his doctor's cures, including massive doses of arsenic, probably made everything worse. Number 3. King Farouk, the royal pickpocket. Imagine being Winston Churchill at a state dinner, reaching for your pocket watch, and realizing the king of Egypt just stole it. That actually happened. King Farouk was a compulsive kleptomaniac who took pickpocketing lessons and practiced on his dinner guests. But the stealing was nothing compared to his other collection. When revolutionaries searched his palace after overthrowing him, they found what was reportedly the world's largest pornography collection. We're talking thousands of items, including pornographic neckties. Yes, you heard that right, pornographic neckties. He was so gluttonous that Egyptians called him a stomach with a head. He ballooned to 300 pounds and literally ate himself to death, collapsing at a restaurant table in Rome while eating a massive meal. At least he died doing what he loved. Number 2. Charles II of Spain, the living corpse. Charles II of Spain was so inbred that he was barely human. His Habsburg jaw was so deformed he couldn't close his mouth. His tongue was too large for him to speak clearly. He didn't learn to walk until age 8. British envoy Alexander Stanhope wrote that the king swallows all he eats whole, for his nether jaw stands so much out that his 2 rows of teeth cannot meet. He had to be fed like a baby his entire life. By age 30, he was senile, bald, and epileptic. His autopsy reads like a horror story. His heart was the size of a peppercorn, his lungs corroded, his intestines rotten and gangrenous. He had a single testicle, black as coal, and his head was full of water. He was literally rotting from the inside out while still alive. Number 1. Christian VII of Denmark, the public pleasure king. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. The number 1 most bizarre royal habit belongs to King Christian VII of Denmark, who suffered for what his doctor called masturbatic insanity. This wasn't something he did in private. Court records describe him pleasuring himself during state meetings, at dinner parties, basically anywhere and everywhere. It got so bad that his doctor Johann Friedrich Struensee had to take over running the country because the king was otherwise occupied. He would run naked through the palace, leapfrog over visiting dignitaries, and spend his nights vandalizing Copenhagen with his equally deranged friends. He built a torture rack and asked servants to flog him for fun. Here's the ultimate irony. While the king was busy with his favorite hobby, his doctor was busy with the queen. Struensee essentially ruled Denmark while having an affair with Queen Caroline. The king was literally too distracted by his own hands to notice his doctor had taken his wife and his country. And there you have it, 13 rulers who prove that absolute power and sound mental health rarely go hand in hand. From drinking mercury to keeping corpses as roommates, these monarchs show us that sometimes the crown really does weigh heavy on the head, especially when that head isn't quite right to begin with. Which bizarre royal habit shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history's strangest rulers, make sure to subscribe for more weird and wonderful stories from the past. Until next time, remember, be grateful you live in a democracy where your leader's strangest habits are usually just weird tweets, not building torture racks for recreational use.